Hello students, welcome to Legacy as Academy. In this particular video, we are going to discuss about the major physiographical regions of Europe. This video is going to be very helpful for the prelims examination, especially in tackling maps related questions. So first of all, if you look a brief overview of Europe, Europe we know is the second smallest continent. Only continent where you have less area than Europe is Australia as such. Overall, if you look at the extent of this European continent, so from west to east, if you look, the westernmost country located in Europe is Iceland. You have a small island country here. And in the further east, you will find a mountain located in Russia. This is called as Urals mountain. So from the Iceland in the west to Urals in the east. Then if we talk about the north to south extent, so European northernmost point is what is referred as Svalbard archipelago. Svalbard archipelago is a kind of group of islands. Group of island is what we call as archipelago, a geographical term that we use here. And this is also the region where you have a what we call as a global seed bank. That means in case of some catastrophe, here the seeds are stored in a frozen condition so that again agriculture can be restarted. So we have taken that into consideration as well, and almost all the countries have their seed bank here, including India, which every country, depending on which crop it grows, it has put its seed there. And then further you come to the south, you have Mediterranean Sea. In Mediterranean Sea, you will find several islands such as Malta and Greece. So that is the overall extent as far as the Europe is concerned. Europe is sometimes also described as peninsula of peninsula. Peninsula is a geographical term which refer to such landmass which is surrounded by water from three sides and has land on one side. So if you look at the European continent, you will find numerous such peninsulas. So what are these peninsula? Now, the peninsula of Europe can be divided as southern peninsula and northern peninsula depending on where they are located. If you look at the southern part of Europe, we have some important peninsulas such as Iberian Peninsula. Iberian Peninsula is this one, as you can see, where you have countries such as Portugal and Spain as such, and it is opening toward the Mediterranean Sea. Peninsula, as you know, is a kind of landmass we have discussed, surrounded by water from three sides. So that is why it fulfills the criteria, because on one side you have Mediterranean Sea, other side you have the Atlantic Ocean, and further to the north you have also the Bay of Biscay. That is why Iberian Peninsula. Then we have Italy. Italy is a very well-known country in Europe, and if you look, the shape of Italy, configuration of Italy is again similar to peninsula, surrounded by Tyrrhenian Sea, Adriatic Sea, and further south you have the Mediterranean Sea. Then we have Balkan Peninsula. Balkan is a region located along this a particular area, as you can see here. This is the region where you have several countries that earlier used to be part of a country called as Yugoslavia. Later we know that Yugoslavia disintegrated into multiple countries, and some major countries that you'll find here are Croatia, Albania. You'll also find here in the same areas several other countries as well. Then Slovenia, for example, Bosnia you will find here. And then if you go to the northern part of Europe, as we can see, this particular landmass is again having a peninsular shape, and this is referred as a Scandinavian Peninsula. Many times here countries are also called as Scandinavian countries. These are largely Sweden, then we have Norway, we have Sweden, and then you have the Denmark as such. And then further you have the Jutland Peninsula. If you go further here, nearby this area, this is the Denmark. So this region also is surrounded by North Sea, Baltic Sea, and upper side you have the water body. So Scandinavian Peninsula in the north, and then we have the Jutland Peninsula. Further north, also if you look here, one small minor peninsula called as Kola. Kola Peninsula is very important. It is part of Russia, administrative territory of Russia, located along the Arctic shelf. And what is unique about Kola? It is actually in the Kola Peninsula we have drilled the deepest hole on the earth. Deepest hole on the earth we have been able to drill is roughly about 12 kilometers. We have not been able to go deeper than that, and that particular hole is located in the Kola Peninsula. That was drilled during the time of Soviet Union for scientific purposes. Now, if you look at the major physiographical regions of Europe, we can overall divide the entire continent into four regions. First, we have the Western Upland, North European Plain, then we have Central Upland, and then we have the Alpine Mountain. Let us try to look them at the map where these landscapes are located. So first of all, if you look here, the first part that is called as Western Upland. So Western Upland refers to the region that is part of Scandinavian Peninsula, or it consists of Scandinavian Peninsula, we can say. So this entire region, this country you have here is Norway. Then we have discussed this side, we have the Sweden as such. So this makes up the Western Upland. And further you go to the south, this entire region that is shaded in green, you can see, is an example of lowland. Why we are calling it lowland? Because it has a flat relief. It is a kind of having a plain topography, and also this region is known as a this what you can call as the cropland region of Europe as such. So this consists of several countries in the northern Europe such as Germany, France, Poland, all the way up to Ukraine and further Russia as such. Then we have the third region that is called as Central Upland. Central Upland is largely located around the Alpine zone, and before we have the massive, for example, in this area, the countries such as France, Switzerland again, and then finally you have the Alpine mountain that you can see all the way extending from the Spain and going all the way up to Balkan region, further extending up to Ukraine, is the mountainous region. And this mountainous region is what we are categorically calling as a Alpine mountain. So this is the overall mapping perspective of the physiographical region. Now let us try to look at them one by one. The first region we have discussed is the Western Upland. Now Western Upland, as we can see on the map, it is located in the western part of Europe, definitely, but at the same time we can say it is also located on the northern side of Europe or northern part of Europe. That is why many times it is also referred as Northern Highlands. If you talk about the countries which are part of this Northern Highland, these are Finland, Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, and very importantly, the Brittany region you have in the Brittany region in the France, Spain, and Portugal as such. These all consist of the Western Upland. These uplands are basically, you can say, example of a plateau, and these are made up of hard ancient rock that was shaped by glaciation. So we know that during the cold phase or cooling phase of Earth, large ice sheet descends from the higher latitude and move toward the lower latitude. It is during those moments a lot of valleys are carved, a lot of depressions are carved by the glacier due to their erosion. And when Earth enters the warming phase, we know that glaciers begin retreating. Begin retreating means they start to move further upward means toward the higher latitude, and when they move at the same time, due to the high temperature, the glaciers melt, and all the depressions, the valleys that were carved by glacier, they get filled up by the glacial meltwater. And that is why in this area such actions has taken place, such activities, phenomena have taken place. You'll find large number of marshlands and lakes, glacial lakes. You'll find numerous number in the western part of Europe as such, including Russia, Scandinavian countries, and all that. Plus, a very interesting landform you would see here is what we call as fjord. If you look here, fjord looks something like this. It is a kind of valley which is surrounded by a steep sided mountain, and this is what we can call as the one of the most unique feature of the Scandinavian region. These are some pictures you can see from fjords. That is why UPSC in Prelims also has asked several years back that how are fjords formed and why they are considered as one of the most beautiful and picturesque places on the earth. So fjord, basically, if you have to define it, how do you define geographically? It is a long and narrow inlet. As you can see, the structure wise, it is very narrow in region because surrounded by steep sided mountains, steep sloping mountain from both sides. So narrow region, long region, and it is inlet of the sea because the valleys that are carved by glaciers, when glaciers retreat back, these valleys get empty. Basically, they are this do not have anything as such. So the sea water start to enter inside, and that is when you have the formation of fjord. So high rugged cliff all around you see, and because of this, these are one of the most picturesque locations. Now, if you look at the North European plain, the central part that we have discussed, extending all the way, if you look at the map here, it is extending all the way from Britain, the westernmost point we can say, starting from Britain. Britain means southern part of United Kingdom, you can say. Then it goes through countries. Here, for example, you have France, then you have Germany, then you have Poland, then you have the countries that are referred as Baltic countries. Baltic countries are Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, then covering a large part of Russia as such, and almost entire Ukraine. Further, you have some other countries such as Belarus, you have Hungary, part of Hungary, and all that. So these are the region which is referred as the North European plain, flat region, very important from the cropping perspective, agricultural perspective. It can also be called as the bread and basket of Europe. Now, it is also because of this region, the most densely populated region of Europe is the North European plain. We know that all across the world, if you talk about the density of population, you will find it to be highest along the river banks in the fertile plain areas, because you know that we require two things for survival. One is food and other is water. Food is cultivated, grown, and that is done in the plain areas. Water is available because we have numerous rivers in this case also. The major rivers of Europe, such as Rhine in Germany, we have Weser and Elbe river, then you have Oder river, Vistula river flowing through Poland. So all these rivers provide ample opportunities for the farmers to use them for irrigation purposes and grow variety of crops here. Plus, The climate of this region also supports a wide variety of seasonal crops. It can be wheat cultivation, it can be related to sunflower cultivation. You also have cultivation of potatoes here, you have cultivation of what we can call as the tuber crops here. For example, beetroot is cultivated in large area in this particular region, and this is also one of the sources through which sugar is produced in the Europe. In case of tropical countries like India, we produce sugar from the sugar cane, but in these countries, sugar is produced by using beetroot because that can be cultivated based on the climate. So very important from agricultural perspective. And these physical features allowed for early communication. If you look here, this entire region is very well connected. You have the densely populated region as we have discussed, plus a lot of river you have that has led to development of inland waterway transportation. And because of the flat terrain, density of railway lines, roadways is also very high here. So connectivity is very good in this particular area. And because of this connectivity, because of the facility of communication, travel, and agricultural development, this region is also considered as one of the most important region from the economic perspective of Europe. It is in this area you will find the plains of Netherlands, which earlier was called as Holland, where the flower cultivation is being done. You would have seen the photographs, picturesque flower fields of Netherlands. So this is also present in the same areas. So flower cultivation, which is also called as horticulture, fruits, flowers, and vegetable, is carried out at a large scale here. It also serve as a source for the food for the markets of Europe. For example, the urban centers of Europe, they are getting their food, flowers, and everything from this entire region. If you look here, the entire plain is kind of flat plain, and the interesting thing is here the land holding size is very high. One farmer can have control over hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. So commercial cultivation, we can say, extensive commercial cultivation is the major method of cultivation in this particular region. Coming to the next part, we have the central upland. If we talk about the central upland, it refers to, first of all, we can take a look at the map here. What is central upland? So this particular area, if you look, is what we can call as the central upland. So in central upland, the countries which are part of it, western France, then further you go east, you have Belgium, then you have the southern part of Germany, and further south you move, you have Czech Republic, and then some part of Switzerland and Austria. These are what make up the central upland of Europe. Central upland is relatively lower in elevation as compared to alpine mountain, which is located further to the south of them. And because of such kind of location, such kind of altitude, what we see is that dense forest development has taken place here. That is why we call it heavily wooded. Heavily wooded means very dense forest growth we are seeing here. Now this entire highland can be further divided into four major regions. First is massive central and Vosges region that is located in the France. We'll talk about each of them again later. Then we have Ardennes of Belgium. Third is the Black Forest and the Taunus region of Germany. And then we have the Ore and Sudeten in the Czech Republic. So these are the four physiographical regions. Now, if you take a look at each of them one by one. So first of all, you talk about the massive. This region that you see is what we call as the massive region. Massive basically is a geographical term that is used to represent the main summit of a mountain chain. So throughout this entire mountain chain that you are seeing, all the way from Jura to Vosges, extending through the countries such as France, Germany, and further south, the massive region is the main summit, main peak, and that is located here. So that we have the massive. Then apart from massive, that Vosges, if you go further to the north, you have the Vosges. Here you have the country called as France. So Vosges is kind of block mountain or fault mountain you would have studied. When land masses splits, what happened? A rift valley is created, and on both sides of rift valley you will find upstanding block, upstanding landmass, which is called as fault or block mountain. So Vosges is example of such kind of fault and block mountain. On the other side of Vosges you will find a valley, and it is through this valley the Rhine river of Germany flows through. So that's the massive, this we can call as the massive and Vosges region. Then we have Belgium. Belgium is a small country along the north, we can say western part of Europe as such, extending outward toward the Atlantic Ocean. And in the Belgium, you will find in the southern part of Belgium what we call as the Ardennes mountain. In the Ardennes mountain, you can see, you will find the summit peaks, which is about 694 meters, that is the highest peak. So somewhere it is similar to the peninsular plateau of India as far as the structure is concerned here. So Vindhya, Satpura, right, Chotanagpur plateau, you will find similar kind of structure here as well. So this is the Ardennes. And then further, you see, you have the river that is flowing from here, Rhine river, and it flows like this through the Netherlands and goes like that. So that's the Belgium. This area, if you look, it is very well known from tourism perspective, because in the older time, especially during the medieval time, you have a lot of castles being built on these mountains. So this area is also known as a castle land, because you can see from the pictures here, where we have discussed heavily wooded region. So everywhere you have dense forest, and then you have the summit peak 700 meters, and at that altitude we can see the development of castles. From security perspective, as in India we the kings used to construct forts, that is how in European countries they used to construct castles to provide security against enemy invasion. And then we have the Black Forest region, as you can see from here. This is the Black Forest. This side we have discussed. I told you is the Vosges mountain. This is Vosges, this is Black Forest. Black Forest is also a mountainous area. It is also an example of what you can call as the block and fault mountain. So in between you have the valley, as I told you, and it is through this valley you can see the river Rhine is flowing. Something like this kind of structure we can draw here, like this. So we have this side Vosges, this side Black Forest, and here we have Rhine Valley. So clear cut example of block or fault mountain. I'm sure you would have studied the formation in the geography classes. Then as you come to the Czechia, earlier it used to be called Czechoslovakia, later on the country split it into, now it is Czechia plus Slovak Republic. So in Czechia you will find the mountain called as Or mountain in the northern part, and then further to the south you have the Bohemian forest, and then further to the northwest in the Czech Moravian highland you have another mountain called as, mountain means we can say the high elevation landmass called as Sudetenland. Sudetenland has a very huge historical importance, because if you study the World War II history relevant to that, you would have heard, you would have read that one of the reason why Hitler had antagonistic attitude was because Sudetenland he wanted to capture, he wanted to have as a German territory, and that was one of the appeasement policies that was followed by British government and other governments at that time. They said that okay, Germany can have Sudetenland, and then we knew that after that what happened, Hitler began to attack every countries starting with Poland. Then the last part, the highest elevation landmass in Europe, as we can understand, is the Alpine mountain. Now Alpine mountain is not a single mountain as such, it is divided into multiple mountain ranges, and also they are spread across several different countries of Europe. The major mountains that are part of this mountain chain or mountain range is the Alps, one of the most popular and well known mountains. Then we have the Pyrenees. So Alps mountain, then we have Pyrenees, then we have Apennines, then we have Dinaric Alps, then we have Balkans, and then finally we have Carpathians. So total 6 major mountain we can say is part of Alpine mountain. The characteristic feature of these mountain is obviously elevation wise, these are the highest regions of European continent. Plateaus you also find in between them, which is very rugged in nature. Rugged means they are not flat or uniform in structure, they have very zigzag kind of structures, sudden change in elevation and summit you would see here, plus a steeply sloping land. So these are some characteristics that define the Alpine mountain. Now if you go to the southern part of Alpine mountain, for example, we have discussed about Apennines. Apennine is located actually in Italy, and the extension of Apennine is also where you have several active volcanoes. Like in Italy, 2 active volcanoes we can take here. Example, Mount Etna, that is in the Sicily island of Italy, and then we have Mount Vesuvius, which also is located and is part of Alpine. So overall, because these mountains are located in the higher latitude and also they have significantly high elevation, what we see is that these mountains for many time of the year are covered with snow. So snow clad mountain, this kind of structure you see attracting a lot of tourists for skiing, hiking and various adventurous activity as such from all across the Europe. So if you look at these mountains, their location, first we have discussed is Pyrenees. So this is the Pyrenees mountain. It is located along what you can call as the Iberian Peninsula, where you have Spain and Portugal on one side, and then you have France on the other side. Then you have this mountain, kind of you can say crescent like shape, Alps mountain, situated along Switzerland, Belgium, Austria and these countries. Then we have Apennines in the Italian peninsula, we have discussed. Then further you have Carpathian mountain, again kind of curved shape we can see from here, extending all the way from Poland. Then we have Ukraine, then we have Romania, Hungary and all these countries as such. Then further to the south, the Balkans we have discussed, such as Croatia, Slovenia, these countries we have. So Balkan regions you will find in this particular area, and these are what you can call as the major mountain ranges here. Interestingly, further on the eastern side of the Black Sea, you will find a mountain range called as Caucasus. So around Caucasus you will have Turkey, then you have Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and further you have Russia. So Caucasus is the mountain where you will find the highest peak of entire Europe. This is called as Mount Elbrus. I would write here the highest peak, the tallest peak of entire European continent. If it is asked, it is Mount Elbrus, located at the elevation of 5,642 meter. It is located in the Caucasus Mountain. Country-wise, if someone asks you, the answer would be Russia. So it is located in Russia, the tallest peak. And we know that since the country, so the European continent basically is spread all across from the south to north over a large area, it also has different types of vegetation zone. If you start from the north, you can see that you have the closed boreal forest. Closed forest means canopy density is very high. If you are flying above this forest, you might not be able to see the forest floor. Everywhere you will see the green sheet of vegetation. And boreal means this entire forest is covered by very less number of species of trees, so they are less diversity, low diversity trees as such, and they are most of coniferous trees you will find here. Then you'll have tundra vegetation further along the Scandinavian peninsula. Then here you have further in the western part, northwestern part, which area is referred as a plain region that we have discussed, or central highland. They will find temperate forest, cool temperate forest, similar forest that you would find in the Himalayas, somewhere at the altitude of 2000 to 3000 meters. Similar kind of forest we find here as well, such as poplars, adlers. You'll find trees here such as spruce, birch, pines most importantly. Then further to the east, if you go to the Ukraine and further to south to the Russia, you will find steppe. Steppe basically refer to alpine, what you can call as temperate grassland. These are made up of short, nutritious and dense grasses which act as a very good site for the grazing by the cattle, any kind of animals for example. These steppes are known for several species of animals. The horses are most common one here. And then further to the south, we have wooded steppe. Wooded steppe means here you have grasslands, but at the same time within those grassland you will find the forest and trees as well, while moist dry steppe is generally populated by only grasses as such. So that is how we can classify the entire forest and vegetation of Europe all the way from south to north. In the Mediterranean region, if you see along the Mediterranean coast, this region that we are seeing is referred as Mediterranean vegetation, where viticulture is one of the major activity, grape cultivation we can say is major activity, and because of this, throughout this entire red region that you see, one of the most important economic activity is the wine manufacturing. So that's why, because of the Mediterranean vegetation as such. Now, if you look at some of the important rivers that we have in the European continent, so the longest river of entire Europe is referred as Volga river. Volga's length is about 3,531 kilometers. So if you compare, it is longer than all three rivers that we have in Himalayas, Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. The longest in these three are Brahmaputra with 3,180 kilometers. So it is even longer than Brahmaputra rivers, 3,531 kilometers. The Volga river is the longest river. It is also referred as the national river of the Russian Federation, because most of the river Volga is flowing through this region that you can see from here, flowing through the Russian territory as such. So important river, national river of Russian Federation. Lot of dams, as you can see, Kubyshev Dam for example here you find. So this dam also is used for the generation of hydroelectricity that supplies to the industrial region of Russia here, where you have steel industries and all this industry here as such. So that's about the river Volga. You can see this is the Volga river originating from the mountain here you have called as the Valdai mountains. So from Valdai mountains of Russia, the rivers originate and finally it drains out in a sea that is called as Caspian Sea near the city called as Astrakhan. So this is where we have this river as such. Volgograd, very important city located along the bank of river Volga. Second important river, which is also the second longest river of Europe, is called as Danube. So as you can see, this is the course of river Danube. It is extended over a length of 2,850 kilometers and it flows from west to east direction. So it originates near what is called as Donau-Eschingen in the Black Forest region. We just have discussed Black Forest on one side, Vosges on the other side. So Black Forest example of the Block Mountain. So from the Black Forest, the river originates, then it flows through several countries. Overall, it passes through 10 countries. These countries are France, then you have Germany, then you have Austria, then you have Hungary, and you can see several other countries you will find here. So this, for example, here you will find parts of the Serbia and all these countries, and finally near Moldova, it drains out in the Black Sea region. So from Black Forest to Black Sea, second longest river of Europe, that is river Danube, also locally called as Dano river. Then third river is Dnieper river, which is the fourth longest river of entire European continent. Dnieper river is clearly, you can see from here, it is along the bank of Dnieper river you will find Chernobyl, a city well known for one of the worst industrial disaster, nuclear disaster we have witnessed in our history, plus the capital city of Ukraine, Kiev. is located along the bank of river Dnieper. Then it flows through entire Ukraine, dividing into northern and southern part, and then finally it drains out. Again, the sea is called as Black Sea here. So again, the river Dnieper originates from the same place, same hill from where you have the origin of river Volga. The hill is Valdai Hill, and it is located in the Russian city called as Smolensk. So from a Smolensk, you have the origin of river Dnieper. These are very, very important from prelims perspective, because all these places continuously are coming in news due to Russia-Ukraine war has been going on. So a lot of nuclear power plants you have. Chernobyl is also very important place. So question can easily be asked about this. Then the fifth longest river of Europe, if someone asks you, it is what you call as Don River. Don is about 1870 kilometers in length. It originates again from Russia. The region is called as Tula. So from Tula Oblast of Russia, near the city called as Novomoskovsk or New Moscow. So from Novomoskovsk region, you have the origin here. You can see Don River. Then Don River flows through entire Russian territory here, and then finally it drains out here. This is called as Sea of Azov or Azov Sea. So Don River drains out in the Azov Sea. Azov Sea is further connected to Black Sea region here. And interestingly, from the other side, I told you, you have the longest river of Europe called as Volga River. So Volga River is draining out here, where the answer would be Caspian Sea. So you can see from the map here, Don River is coming from the north, and then it is turning westward, draining out in the Azov Sea, further in the Black Sea, while the Volga River also coming from north, then it turns in the eastward direction, drains out in the Caspian Sea. And both of these rivers, since they are flowing across Russian territory, what they have done is that they have constructed a canal here. This canal is called as Volga-Don Canal, and thus it is very, very important, because this entire area is kind of having access to the river waterway transportation or inland waterway transportation that helps in the transportation, especially for industrial products and goods. So that's how we can understand the fifth and the last river, that is the Don River. So that's all what we have to study, important facts as far as the European continent is concerned. I'm sure if you go through this video and try to memorize and write down important facts, it would play a very important role in ensuring that you are having full confidence in attempting map-based question, especially from European continent in the prelims examination. Thank you very much.